Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody, wonderful, beautiful beings. This is Alchemy of Light and Love, and this is Terri Hager, your host, psychotherapist and metaphysical teacher. And today I am thrilled to have as my guest a dear personal friend of mine, Larry Hembree, who is an openly gay man. And the topic for today is growing up gay, Larry's experience, and he's going to talk about that. So welcome, Larry. Thank you for being on my show.
Well, I'm really glad to be here, but, you know, as an openly gay man, I still don't know who the composer of that opening music was. Who was that? You would know.
As an openly gay man, I am shocked. You are not living up to your stereotypes.
I should know who has that classical music.
It's Bach.
You know, I grew up in the South. I grew up with country music.
All right, you are forgiven. It was J.S. Bach.
Oh, that guy. Oh, yeah.
That guy. Yeah, so Larry, you can tell we're old friends, all long-time friends. It's just so much fun to have you do this with me.
And so you're in
Larry,
Chicago and I'm in South Carolina. And let me tell you right now, it's the prettiest day we have had this entire year in Columbia, South. It's 70 degrees. My oak leaf hydrangea are budding. But we actually had a winter here in Columbia. We actually had like 2 inches of snow for 2 days, which we were all thrilled about. I'm sure you've had 97 inches this year.
Not quite, but almost. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Larry is the executive director?
I'm the managing director, which I think is the same thing, but you know. Director
at Trustis Theater in South Carolina, and which is a wonderful theater. And I did live in South Carolina until just a year ago, and so many things I miss about it. And being with Larry and his partner is one of those things. Well, Larry, we're going to talk about growing up gay, and you knew earlier than most people that I know about that you were gay. How old were you when you just realized that you liked boys and not girls?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I always made the joke that I was never in the closet ever, but actually, and people are like, well, you know, does that mean you always knew you were gay? And the answer is yes. But I mean, there were steps along the way when I knew something was different. I mean, it goes back to, I could say, like 3rd grade even. Tragic but true story, and I think this might have been the first time it started developmentally making sense to me. I had a friend in the neighborhood who we hung around together, and I know now that it was a huge crush on this kid. I think I was 3rd grade, and he might have been 2nd. And he was actually killed by our school bus. He crawled under the school bus, and we were on it, and we ran over him, and it took me years to get over that. And that's the first memory I have of I like a boy a lot. And then as my life as an artist went on and the theater, eventually, I guess about maybe 8 years ago, I did a dance piece because I was so scared of dance. I decided to be in one. And so they created a piece around my life, and they said pick out stories that were significant that you can dance to as contemporary dance. And that was one of the stories.
Wait a minute, who did this?
This was like a Columbia College. It's a college that has a dance program.
Okay.
And at that point, I'll catch up. I was the performing arts director for the state of South Carolina, which meant I worked for state government. And I gave money to dance companies, but I never knew because I grew up in a trailer in a small town, I never knew how to talk about dance. We just didn't see it. So I said, well, let me put myself in a dance piece, and then I can know how to talk about it. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
So the piece that I created actually became part of that story, which was when my best friend in second grade got run over by a bus that we were on. And I realized as I started piecing together what I wanted to move or dance to, that was super significant in my life, because I went into a deep depression at third grade trying to understand how this could relate to me in such a deep way at such a young age.
Yeah.
So my guess would be about then is when I thought something's really different here, because I have a twin sister, too, who certainly didn't like girls like she liked boys. So we kind of both liked
Larry,
boys. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your emotional reaction to realize that something was different?
Well, I think there was a lot of sadness. You know, we lived in a house. Well, first of all, you know, you got to talk a little bit about your family. We lived in a house where you didn't share any emotions, so whatever I had inside, I kind of kept inside, because I really had no one to talk to. And so what I would do, and I remember this, you know, it's funny how and the nice thing about my family is my twin sister, we've been able to validate things in our lives that happen. And as a theater artist, we sometimes over-dramatize moments, or they didn't really happen. We just think about them. You know what I mean? You know,
I do.
Yeah. And so I actually became a real freak, listening to a lot of music and reading all the time, and would sort of channel what I wanted to be, but wasn't into those stories and that music, and sort of imagine myself somewhere else. It was really easy. And so I remember just, even at that age, locking myself in my room and just reading and pretending I was in that family and those books, because somehow those people were cooler and more interesting and probably could be gay. But I just knew I couldn't be gay in that house with those people in it. This was also, Terry, like let's just say 1967 or 1968, when the world was a really different place than it is now, thank God.
Yeah. That's that's a really, from a psychotherapist point of view, that's a really great coping mechanism for a child to do. That's similar to what people do under cases of abuse. They go off somewhere else, which is brilliant. I mean, it can cause problems later, but for that moment, it's wonderful.
And it was, and even so, I have an older sister, and she's like 5 years older than me, and I don't think until the last 2 or 3 years, as she's going through some of her stuff that we connect to, we've never been close. So she was not really there. Even my twin sister, as close as twins are, and let me tell you, you know, most of the twins I know, we're all very spiritually connected, whether we want to be or not. And so even my twin sister was somebody who I saw having this normal life, you know, and me trying to kind of figure out why my life was not like hers, because she was obviously heterosexual. You know, so I remember, because I was a good reader, I would pull, like, books, and I also went to the local library all the time. I stayed there all the time. So I would pull books about sexuality, the few that there were, and read them. In the library, I wouldn't bring them home, because God forbid somebody knew I was reading about sex at, you know, 4th and 5th grade, to try to understand where I fit into that schism. So I remember, do you remember the book called, like, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that was the book. My parents kind of gave it to us and said, here, read. And there was a section on homosexuality, but it talked about being deviant, and a deviant population, and I didn't really want to be that, and then it was confusing because I didn't think I was that, because I thought I was a nice guy, and I didn't think deviant people could be nice or live natural, normal lives. So it was super confusing, and there was no one to talk to.
Gosh. Wow. Yeah.
But I remember that very vividly. And then from that connection, it was like, I have to go to high school and then get out of this town so I can be who I am. Because I always knew I needed to be true to myself. Somehow that was inherent. But it was really difficult in a small town in the South. I mean, you've lived in the South.
Yes, and you were in a very small town, weren't you?
Oh, my God, it was tiny. And, well, we moved from a smaller town to a little bit of a larger town later on in life. And that got a little better. But, this was even, I grew up segregation, integration, the change between those two things. So you're dealing with, first racial discrimination, which I always remember my parents were super racist. So when my friends would be African American, which as we went into, integration, even my parents would say, why are you hanging around, with non-white people, which also was disturbing to me and confusing because I didn't have that we, they mentality. Maybe and this is my own experience, I know. Everybody has a totally different experience. But then that was confusing. So if people segregate themselves based on color, what about this gay? It wasn't gay. We were queer, sissies, whatever you want to, I got called every name in the book. So what is that? So, what is the contrast of who I think I am and then who I'm supposed to be, which is like my father, and feel that. And it was just a mess. It was a mess.
Yeah. And imagine that, was your family Baptist?
Believe it or not, it's worse. I'm not saying anything about religion yet. My family grew up in the Church of God of Prophecy, which my father's family did, which is kind of like Pentecostal holiness.
Oh, that's right. I remember
which
that.
is a lot of speaking in tongues, which, of course, certainly set me up for a career in theater. Because, that's the highest rung. And I remember my twin sister and I would sit in church and hold on to each other like, what are they saying? What is that performance? So that, and then my mother came from a Presbyterian background. Yeah, it was crazy. So I'm like, oh, God, I've been on stage all my life. Or those people that say, so there were, the other thing that was weird about my family is one side of the family was wealthy-ish and one was dirt poor. So there were those, so the more charismatic Christians were on the less socioeconomic side, and then the Presbyterians on the other side were a little more learned, if you could say. But everybody grew up in a small town, so, it was small town mentality, which at the time I didn't understand. I thought the whole world was small town.
Well, of course. You said that thing about not having a we-they mentality, and that is one of the most endearing things about you, Larry, is that you never have had a we. I've known you for 25 years or something, or longer. I don't know, a long time.
Oh my God, has it been longer than that? I think it has.
No. I think it's 24, in fact.
Oh my God, we're still living. I love it.
I know, we're getting old. But I have seen that about you, how you love everybody, which is why it's always fascinated me how, and it's just your personality, how even in that little tiny town that we both lived in, we lived in the same town for a while, and there were a lot of very conservative, I'm really sure fairly homophobic people, but everybody loved you. And it's because you love everybody. You have never had that we-they mentality. I just noticed that about you. Anyway, that's an aside.
But, let me say this, though, interestingly enough, go back to the twin thing and analyze this one, though. Well, make this happen. So here's, interestingly enough, that my twin sister, I think, who actually is 2 minutes older than me, she has she has that same kind of gene, except she is totally not accepting of anything that's not Baptist or of her world. And so I've always been really confused about growing up in the same womb, coming out, still having that love for all people, and I'm an unabashed glass half full kind of person. I'm always going to see the glass half full, and it gets me in trouble sometimes, but I just refuse to see the world. And she is I mean, it's so weird how we're so different. She still thinks all gay people are going to hell, and her children and her husband. I mean, they are so homophobic, and that's where I'm trying to figure out in our upbringing what happened, what made me. Because until we graduated from college, we were very close, and we went to the same college too, and we always were just kind of glass half full. We don't understand discrimination, but now she's totally different, and that's really perplexing me. Also, what to do about it if I can't do anything about it. She sent me books on how to be, straight by finding the Lord. And that, which I just stand back and say, this is just not where I am right now.
Yeah, what a loss for you. That must have been a source of quite a lot of grief to have had somebody that close. And for her to have changed.
But she's a good girl, So my parents are getting elderly, and actually the last couple of weeks when we had some family stuff with my mom, she always took over as a caregiver. So early on, she said, "I'll take care of our parents. Don't worry about it," because they actually don't even really, they don't embrace my lifestyle or my job. They don't even really know what I do. I'm 53 years old. It's about time, And they just, because I'm in the arts. But I'm going to give her a break because I saw how much she has worked with my parents all these years and gave me the out from that thing. She lives a little closer to me. And she's been working her butt off on helping get my parents in the aging process set up the right way. So I'm going to give her a little bit of break on the gay thing for a while, I've decided, because there's something in it. So because we are alike in a lot of ways, and then we're going to get to that when we can, when it's time, if indeed it ever becomes time.
Yeah, well.
And I think the thing that makes me... Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's my observation that people who have biases of whatever stripe, and we all have some. Gosh, we do absorb some biases from our culture. Almost everybody does. I certainly did, and just have to be aware of it. But even these people, it doesn't mean they're bad people. I mean, they might be, but very often they're wonderful salt-of-the-earth people who have absorbed a bias. And of course, the religion thing, and I know you're not putting religion down because you go to church yourself.
I go to church, and I sing in the choir. Sure. I go to a Methodist church,
Right. And so, that's why I know that you're not. I know that you're not atheist. And at the same time, religion has been extraordinarily difficult and painful for many, the majority probably, of gay people.
Oh, God, I've struggled for years.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So this is where I am now. I can't say what my strong beliefs are in, death and life ever after and all that, because when you go Church of God, Presbyterian, I've been to India, I've done Buddhism, I've been to the Unitarian Church, I've been to lots of churches in sort of this kind of what am I supposed to do about this? And so my partner and I attend a Methodist church. She actually subs pipe organ there, because all gay people play the organ or a keyboard or sing, and so we do that. We're still in that thing. We don't have unfortunately, we don't have the visual gene where our house looks like, it's supposed to look like gay people's houses look. Ours looks like comfortable and bizarre. But anyway, that being said, this is where I am on the church thing now. I really love the idea of church. I really like the concept of community. And our church, and I sing in the choir, and he does too. The choir is a community for us. And there are a group of people, even in church, which says, they don't believe in gay marriage. And if you are clergy, now they're going to do something in the Methodist church, you're clergy, and you do a same-sex thing, they'll kick you out of clergy, which is crap, of course. But we can't, that's the way it is now. That's where the world is, in that church. And we love our community, and nobody gives a crap whether you're gay or straight in that choir, huge choir. So that gives us comfort and happiness. Yeah. And all we can do, I've always said from day one, and which kind of goes back to the how you survive in all these worlds, because I'm a fundraiser and I run a nonprofit theater, so I'm always in the business community on a lot of boards of, people running banks and lobbyists and lawyers, because that's where the money is. And I also believe you should be involved in your community as much as you can, whether you're gay, straight, or whatever. And so I've always thought that if you are nice to people and you're really good at your job, then you're going to be okay. And so with that as sort of the mantra, I put blinders on to some of the other stuff and just move forward with that as my mantra, which has been interesting because you suddenly do, if you really get your job, people start wondering, oh, that's the gay guy who's really good at his job. And then they start thinking, oh, that's the person really good at his job who really is good on this board with me and knows what he's doing. And then it becomes another kind of perception, I think. And, of course, I'm seeing this through other people's eyes, so I may be wrong. So the gay thing becomes more important as this person's doing a really good job on this board or working for me or in this community.
I think you're
hard.
Right.
It's hard sometimes in the South. Funny story is just like 30 minutes ago I was having lunch with someone, a director friend of mine, at the next county over, which is the most highly Republican county in the state of South Carolina, and I live in the most highly Democrat city, and a river runs between the two cities. And you could, in the restaurant, I mean, it was a different feeling in this county. People live there because they're Republican, and they, and there are also some really good schools. But it just, you can just still feel when you're, and when I say I'm openly gay, I'm not saying I scream it to the world, but if you aren't just totally stupid, you would realize I was a gay person. I just am. And there's still tension in that room, in that restaurant, because everybody in that county, they all pride themselves kind of on being super conservative and, super Christian and all that. And you still feel it, though, You still feel it, and it's very interesting. No people of color, it's just, but it's the world we live in. And in the South, where there's a huge racist contrast, and there is, obviously, when I would say the town, Columbia has 50% probably African-American, 50% white, or 60-40 white. That's just another whole thing you have to deal with. And it's just recently people started saying, oh, gay rights are like civil racial rights, and so because I'm so honest with my African-American friends who I have a lot of, we have that discourse and discussion on, is being gay like being black, and they're like, we decided no, not at all. You might be discriminated on, but, I can't help being black, I can't help being gay, but it's two different things. I can hide my gay if I need to. The South is so full of repression. The South is so full of repression, with so many men who are gay not coming out. And that may be just my stupid Southern view. It may be that way all over the whole world, or the whole United States. But it's a very interesting conversation. So trying to find those connections with my African-American friends that's not going to be, it's a connection only because we're a minority or there is some sense of discrimination, but we're still the same people. So it goes back to the we-they thing from an early life.
Yeah.
I don't know where that went, but that was going somewhere.
One thing that I have a book called Jesus, the Bible, and Homosexuality, Healing the Church, or something like Shattering the Myth, Healing the Church, written by a minister. So great book. And it points out, as do plenty of other books, that the Bible was used to justify slavery originally, that ministers, preachers preached slavery from the pulpit using the Bible as their basis, that this was, ordained by God and all of that, and that then it was used to justify subjugation of women, and that now it is being used to justify subjugation of gay people. And so from that standpoint, I mean, from my point of view, there is a similarity between the civil rights move, in my mind anyway. Of course, I'm neither a person of color nor gay, but the way it seems from the outside in is that there is a similarity between civil rights, racial civil rights, like that happened in the 60s, and the gay rights movement, because it's a group, in both cases, it's a group, here's what I love, is that it's a group that would never have become, or that it might take in another 1,000 or 200,000 years to become disenfranchised if, in the emotional sense, if there hadn't been a movement. So there was a civil rights movement, but it wasn't white people who came up with it. It was African Americans decided, hey, this isn't right, let's do something about it. And we would like to have equal rights, if you don't mind. And that is what's happening now in the gay world, too. But it wouldn't have happened. And, I mean, now it is beginning to happen, and it wouldn't have if the gay world had just stayed quiet and stayed out of the way. Nothing would have changed, I don't think. I mean, maybe eventually. But
what I ponder, and I totally agree with everything you say there, and what I ponder is when all is said and done in the gay world where there is no as much discrimination or none, as in the same racial context, wonder if, I'm always curious about this, wonder if because of the civil rights movement, ours happened faster, was it expedited because of things that had already been done, or those templates for how to get from A to B were already set up. It's interesting, and of course we don't know where it's going to go, but Joe and I, my partner, talk all the time about we're just completely flabbergasted by the conversations that we never thought we would have in our lifetime. I'm 53 and he's 48. With our parents looking at TV, things that are just so naturally sort of part of, becoming more part of the discourse of the world that are about LGBT causes. And it's just very interesting and overwhelming, and we get very emotional about it. From having a black president, which became a very emotional thing for us, just maybe because of the same things you were talking about. But to believe in our lifetime that the LGBT lingo exists so that people aren't beating up in the bullying and all that, it's just overwhelming, way overwhelming to us. And so, I always wish that this life were a dress rehearsal for the next one so that we could come back and do it right and understand it better. But it's not. I don't think it is. Somebody told me, my therapist years ago told me it was not a dress rehearsal, that this is what we have. So we have to deal with it. But it's been really interesting. Even this is a small thing, but sitting in a room with your parents and watching something LGBT or a character who's gay in a show and wondering, because we know what their, former ideas about homosexuality is, what they're thinking, what is that, because I am one of those, that's me. You're looking at it, maybe a collection of a lot of gay people into one character, but, so it precipitates potentially some conversation, which we never thought, my partner and I never thought we'd talk to our parents about being gay, because they thought it was just a dumb idea.
Here, I remember my first time I ever met your mother, I think. It was a long, long time ago. And you said to her, funny thing you said, this is who I would marry if she weren't already married.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I don't know why you said that.
Yeah, because
and your mother said to me, what?
She probably said, well, why didn't you?
What she said was to me, well, I wish you weren't married then, because Larry needs somebody to take care of him.
God. A woman, of course, who can cook.
A woman, of course. So you both kind of skirted totally around that issue. I mean, you did, too, by saying, this is who I would marry if
you always master her.
That was a funny thing that you said. And then it was funny that she said. But you told me previously, before we got on the air, that things that your parents were coming along, which blows me away because I've met them and they are. My opinion of them is that they are probably really good people. I've only met them. I don't know them well.
Right.
But I've met them several times, I think, and I've always thought that I've never, thought that they were bad people. And yet I have known because you've told me about their great prejudice. So to hear that things are changing with them is marvelous. Tell me about it.
Well, again, in 10 years from now, I'll be able to understand this. I only know what I know now, which is several things. I think that whole journey where you pass that baton to where you become a parent to your parents and they become children, we're sort of in that journey, which makes them a little more vulnerable.
Yes,
and
it does.
What are my children going? Are they going to put me, and move me somewhere where I can, and I think that is an interesting conversation that we've been having. Well, I didn't talk to my parents for years because they didn't like me, or they never wanted to know because my background's in theater, so I've been a theater director. I've run an art house, nonprofit art house cinema. I've run a community theater. I'm now running a professional theater. I've always involved in the arts. In the South, artsy people are artsy people, and they're, wild and wild. We're all wild. I sound wild. Yeah.
Sure, and, wild.
Yeah. So they just really had a really interesting view and never wanted to journey into what I did because it wasn't anything they were comfortable knowing about. Because we didn't grow up with the arts. We didn't listen to classical music. We didn't go to anything that was slightly artsy because my parents were just trying to make a living. So those were frills. So when I took piano lessons as a child, it was because they did give me an allowance, that money to do that, and that's what I chose to do with my money. Because I really want to learn how to play piano, which has been helpful, I must say.
So you can play the keyboard?
I do, yeah, but not like my partner because he can tear it up. But I can tell somebody, how to transpose a chord because in theater it's great because they'll say, "Oh, I can't sing in that key," and you're like, "Well, sing it in this key," And that anyway, that's a little sidebar.
Yes.
But. So the thing with the parents has been interesting. Somewhere along the way, well, first of all, I just stopped telling them. For a long time, I tried to prove how awesome I was to them.
Yes.
Dude, I won this award, and I did this, and I know these people, and you know these people because they're famous. And, a lot of things I find myself in places with people who are really the governor and all those people because that's where I work. That's the people I hang out with now because I have to. I finally gave up on trying to convince them I was an okay person because all that stemmed in them was because I was gay, so I couldn't be a normal person and live a normal life. Mm-hmm. So as much as I said, "Oh, I'm really awesome," which was not what I was really saying, but really was what I was saying, it just didn't work. So finally I just got so tired of trying to do that I just cut it off and went for years with not seeing them, or when I did, it was just generic BS conversation. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere along the way, they got, I don't know if it's like a cousin or people they knew who knew me in Columbia. They live about 90 minutes from here where I live. Might have said, "Wow, he was doing this MC gig at this big event. People loved him," or, because I do a lot of MCing because I think being funny is, we need more of that. We need to lighten up. So I do a lot of MCing and people think, and I even do weddings where they become quite, officiate weddings, which are quite funny because
you
that's why
officiate
people
weddings?
I did. Can you believe it? I even officiated a girl wedding in Delaware recently. Isn't that awesome? Because I'm now an ordained minister.
So are you a notary public?
I'm a notary public in the state of South Carolina. That's all you have to be. Well, you can get married just signing a document in South Carolina. But I do a lot of artsy people's weddings, and
wow.
I love weddings because I like to stay in the moment. So if something funny happens at the wedding, I like to point it out to the crowd. And sometimes I have to have a minister who's religious with me, and they'll do the religious part, and I'll just do the funny part. But it's awesome. Yeah, heterosexual weddings are the best. The best. The last one I did, this is a great story. The last one I did, I love this girl. and I went back to the room. You know, the great thing about gay people is you can knock on the door and they can be naked women in wedding dresses, and they don't care if you come in. But if it's like a straight guy, they're like, oh my God, he can't see me. So I went in, and she had a tray of Xanax cut in half on one tray. Her little girlfriend was holding her, and then she was sipping a mimosa through a straw, not to mess up her lipstick. And then there was like a sandwich that the other girl was holding, and I said, well, what are you doing? She goes, I'm getting through it. I said, what is that? She goes, that's Xanax. And she goes, it was just, the whole thing was really bizarre. I'm thinking, oh my God, if I ever got married, is this what he would be doing before we got married? Like chomping down Xanax and mimosas? So the whole heterosexual marriage thing is very interesting, and that's another whole talk show on why I'm not sure gay marriage is like straight marriage. Not that I'm married yet, but you know. But then I had some lesbian friends in Delaware, a much older couple, had both been married, had children, grandchildren, who had been together for a while, and they asked me to come up and officiate their wedding. In Delaware, you have to have a ceremony with an ordained person, and through the Universal Life Church, you can get a license. So I went up and did that about a year ago, and it was really emotional, Terry, because you realize in South Carolina we can't do that yet. And so, you know, and it was also these were women in their 60s, 70s, say, and their grandchildren it was outside in their backyard. It was beautiful in Delaware. The grandchildren were in the wedding. One of them has a son who's a priest, and these were his children. I mean, the children came, all the relatives came, and these were Southern guys. One of them was a Southern girl from Memphis. Okay, so it's Southern too, and you suddenly look at that and say, you know what? Some people do get it. Some people don't give a crap. You know, my mom their mom was really happy, and it was an amazing emotional celebration, you know, and I cracked up a little bit during that one because it was just beautiful. So, you know, lucky for me that I've been able to live a life where I can see that can happen. And so many of my brothers and sisters from the South don't get it. They still are beating themselves up for being gay. You know, they don't want to tell anybody they're gay, you know.
Yeah.
If we go out, they want to not. It's weird, you know. So I'm just blessed that I'm somehow got out of that bad place where, you know, you just beat yourself up and you just can't live your life. I mean, I will say there seem to be so many married gay men in my world. Where
heterosexually married.
Heterosexual men who are married who really are gay. I mean, no, they're in heterosexual marriages.
Right, that's
which
what I mean.
is, and you know, but I also have friends. Recently, I have friends who are like in their 80s who remember, you know, they would say to me, well, when we brought gay people to our house, the cops would come if they knew there were a bunch of gay people there, which were you know, homosexuals at that time, to raid their house and then their true story. No.
Oh my God.
And these people are still living, and they tell some very interesting stories. So that's why I go back to, in my lifetime, I think it's happened quicker than we would have thought, it being a little bit more acceptance of LGBT or understanding of LGBT people who become humans. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
yeah, thank goodness.
You know, again, how blessed I am.
It's much
to know
faster than
people.
I would have thought.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you just now said something about getting out of that bad place. There are a lot of people, and you know a lot of them there, and everybody knows a lot of them, whether they know they do or not, who are in gay people who are in that bad place. So I want to know, how did you get out of it? And at the same time, what advice do you have for somebody who is in that bad place?
Oh, Lord, that's
that
a
bad
hard
place,
one, honey.
Meaning that place of where you internalize the homophobia and you think that there's something wrong with you because everybody says that there is.
Well, okay. Well, so
place.
For me, this is how. I'll just remember at an early age too. Even like in high school, that's an early age for me. Now that I'm 53, I never think that. But when people would say to me, "Oh, you're a sissy or you're a queer," I would always turn it and go, "Well, you're really smart," and then that would take the power away from it, because I knew I was always going to be gay. So it's like either you embrace it and use it to your advantage, or you beat yourself up. So my journey was to be funny about it. And so when, some guy would come and say, oh, you're such a queer, and I'd go, well, yeah, you're so smart. When did you figure that out? Then they become my friend because I sucked all their energy away. They had nothing else to say. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's fascinating. It reminds me of a time I saw a kid playing baseball, and he was a little bit overweight, and somebody on the other team came. They met at second base or something, and the kid from the other team said, "You're fat," and the kid said, looked at him and said, "So?" And that was it. Yeah,
so he
took all the air out of it.
Yeah. So, and then as you learn as a theater person, if you conserve the energy, then you're going to win. And my older sister's going through a really hard time right now, and I've been teaching her how to not respond to things because she's giving them the energy back instead of just saying nothing and keeping it. So I learned that from an early age. If you conserve, you're going to win somewhere along the way. Since I obviously don't talk very much, I've had a really hard joke. I've always had a hard time listening as opposed to talking. So going to that. Yeah. So, but I have to. That's the trait I have. And even as I have a staff of about 8 people where I work now, and I really am working hard on listening. And this may be a totally wrong generalization, but I think gay people have more empathy than straight people in general. And I think it's because we have to put ourselves in so many situations. We have to think what the other person's thinking when we answer something. And the whole pronoun shift. I've never really done that. So going back to what you do, I was lucky, Terry. I understood that the theater community, even I was in a play at like 5th grade. I was in a play in the 3rd grade in a play, and I realized that, wow, if you're in a play, people have to watch you, and they have to laugh or clap, whether they like it or not, or like you or not. Because you're in front of them, and that was really empowering to me. So theater was easy for me. So I really spent my life constructing my community. So what I would say is, if you're just really in that bad place, figure out some people who can make up your community. You just got to find 1 or 2 people to talk to, even if it's a therapist. And I went to therapy for a couple of years just to kind of understand family dynamics and why I was making some really crappy choices. And it changed my life. And just be smart about it. But I feel like if you can find the community can be 2 people, or you and your cat, somebody who can really listen to what you're saying. For me, I have to articulate in order to believe. Some people in their head can, they're head-centered, they can think something they believe it. I have to say it in order to believe it over and over. And so therapy was good for me because I could say it over and over. I did win the award, too. She gave me a bunch of plastic baseball bats and said, when you're angry, hit them against a tree instead of being angry. And I think I went through more bats in fewer weeks than anybody who had ever been a patient of hers. So there was a lot of anger there.
Naturally.
Yeah. So, the question is, how do you not beat yourself up?
How do you come to, because, with my clients, I'm always trying, gay or straight, any kind of clients, I'm always, naturally, as all therapists do, we're always trying to help people to accept themselves, to love themselves, to stop beating themselves up, because it is so incredibly disempowering and counterproductive in every way. So, and everybody has some of that. Everybody is born with some, I'm not okay, something's wrong with me. So this is fascinating to me, how you did this. I mean, I could always tell, knowing you, that you had gotten there, but how do you do it? How do you tell other people how to do it?
Well, I had a couple of role models, but so read books that have strong gay characters in them. Watch newscasts. Find websites where gay people empower themselves. Now, let me say this now. I'm not a gay prider. I'm not proud of being gay. I'm just gay. But I'm very linked to the gay community. In our city, we have a gay pride parade every year, and a gay pride, and I'm always the live radio announcer for the parade. I'm on the South Carolina Gay and Lesbian Business Guild. I've been on that board before, which is about gay organizations or gay companies or gay friendly companies kind of embracing each other and keeping, it out there that, if you want a plumber who's gay or, so a lot of times in our own homes, we're scared, when you bring a contractor in, if they're not gay friendly, then they're in your house, in your private space, and how awkward that is. Even though I don't care, because most of our friends are straight. Actually, my partner and I have mainly straight friends. We have a lot of gay friends. We have a ton of straight friends. I don't know why I said that, but that's just what it is. But going back to that place is if you could just find positive role models and see that these things are possible. I mean, because for me, it was living in a small town in the South. There are all those people out there who live in small towns. It's hard, It's hard, and I'm fixing to. People say when you say I'm fixing to, you sound so Southern. It is a Southern thing, isn't it?
You do. It is Southern.
Well, I'm about to facilitate a discussion on it's a documentary film that's going to be shown in our town about a theater company in Montgomery, Alabama that did their theater's like in an antique shop, and they created this original play in this theater, and there are a lot of drag queens in the play, and they follow the people in this play, their lives, and some are HIV positive, and it's a beautiful story. And because I'm a theater director and I run a theater, we're going to invite these people to come to Columbia and see the screening with us and talk about it. But it goes back to finding your community. And this film, which is a documentary, so it's basically true. Editing does some things that maybe kind of throw things off a little bit, but these people found their community in a small town in Montgomery, Alabama, and it's interesting to watch because it would be a psychiatrist's dream to see how you find those people that are like you. And they are not all gay people. These are, kind of geeky, dark, women who just don't want to be mainstream and aren't, so they have to find these places. But, I just think you have to find somewhere you can be comfortable, like find your womb and live in it, put those people in there where you have, which is probably easier said than done, but, the world of the media has changed. When I was growing up, the only time you would meet gay men were in a bar or, in the woods or, through somebody telling you where gay people go. Well, it's a different world now. It's a different world. And then, like in the theater that I run, 30 years ago, they started something called Family Night. So the Wednesday before a show opens on Friday, if you were gay, you got in for like $10. And it was a social thing because you could meet other gay people at this theater, and it was a social thing and see a play, and then, maybe discuss the play or go out for coffee or beer or whatever. Well, that's changed now. So we still do Family Night, but it's a whole another meaning now because family is different than, a gay family. Because you also can go on the internet and church and, there are groups for gay people and all this, and it's not so taboo. So we've had to rethink what Family Night is. And it's been very interesting because you really have access to the gay world, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Interesting. I can see that we're definitely going to have to do another one of these because we're not going to cover everything we thought we were going to cover. But
we could just write a play and present it on the next one.
I know it.
And there are a lot of gay plays out there too. There's a ton of literature in gay themed theater. We do it all the time here.
Well, there's gay themed theater.
Gay people pay to come see it. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, they do.
Go to New York.
Gay movies, books, and now, fortunately, there gay themed things on television because television really does impact the cultural thinking so much. But anyway, before I have to get this question in before we run out of time, which is going to be in about 10 minutes. I can't believe it, but that's how it is talking with you, Larry.
Yeah, well, I would much rather do this and go raise $1 million, which is what I would do next. So if anybody out there has $1 million, just get my address and send it here, and then I can just sit back and talk about being gay all the time. That'd be awesome.
Right. Wouldn't that be awesome?
By the way, we're about to announce our next season, and one of the things we're doing next season is called the Gay Marriage Plays. So there already is a play, And there's 7 writers that wrote themes about gay marriage that are hysterical and poignant and all that. So that's already in our world.
Oh,
the gay marriage.
great.
We'll sell it
Great.
out here.
Wonderful. Yeah. I know you will. Well, but here's the question I've got to get in. For anybody listening who is not gay but who has friends or family, children, peer, colleagues, anything that are gay, what would have made it easier for you growing up and coming out? Well, we haven't even talked about your coming out. I don't think we're going to get to that. In other words, what would have made it easier for you? What can somebody else who knows a gay person who has some degree of sympathy, who isn't just totally, they're terrible and going to hell, what can they do to make it
Well,
easier?
I just think you have to, with this also, now let me just say this too, when I was saying find your community or find your people, it's not like if you're a gay person, you have to find somebody else who's gay.
Right.
There are a lot of straight people out there who understand gay as much as gay people do. So, for instance, me and you, when I met you, I would say, oh, she gets it about gay people. I don't have to do all that stuff to make her understand I'm cool. She already knows I'm cool, but she doesn't care that I'm gay. And she's actually concerned about who I'm with and, what I'm doing. So I would just say for all those, if you sense someone's gay or they're gay, just tell them they're gay and move on with it and don't make a big deal out of it. And that's also going to give them an entree into telling you about their life and asking you about your life.
Okay, so, now I have to qualify the question. That would work from my perspective. Again, I'm talking from the outside, although I have worked with a number of gay people, as clients, but still I'm on the outside. So it seems to me that would work fine for somebody who has come to acceptance and perhaps pride or has assimilated into the gay community and feels good about it.
Right.
But how would that be for somebody who hasn't come out, who perhaps hasn't even come out to themselves yet? Would that be a great thing for me to go to Joe Smith, whoever, and say, I know you're gay, if he's not even out? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of
Well, I think
okay?
that we're smart enough not probably not, Terry. It probably wouldn't work. You'd probably scare the crap out of somebody. But I think there are levels of which you can, if you really want to intersect with that person, I think there are levels that you can get there. Because I have friends who work in big companies who said, oh, my God, I could never come out, or I don't think my colleagues know that I'm out. But they really want them to know they're out or know that they're gay. They may not be out. But they may be out, just not out at work. So I think there's things like, how was your week? What did you do? If you just get away from them being gay and start conversations, I think ultimately when somebody feels comfortable enough, they're going to open up if it's sincere. If it's sincere. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I really know the answer to that or not because I may be in another place with that. But, it's just the whole weird thing about fear. It's all fear. Fear of being gay. Fear. How do you get over fear? How are you okay with, not being scared to do it? Everybody has their own journey. But, and some people end up in places where it's a lot easier to be out than other people. I'm not sure. That may be the next conversation.
Yeah.
Because what I hear you saying is if I'm not gay and I really want this person to be okay with me being okay with, I don't know.
No, that's not quite where I was coming. If you're sort of, yeah, but what I'm really thinking in terms of is, I think in terms of teenagers especially, who are vulnerable, who may be out or maybe not. But if it's clear that they're gay and I'm a school teacher or a parent, I mean, if
that's interesting.
If my child comes to me and tells, sorry?
I just had a friend who was fired in California because he worked in a school and he worked in theater, and he told a student who was in the theater who he knew was gay but wasn't out, that it was okay to be gay. This was his way of saying, I get it, and you can confide in me and be, and this is a straight man telling this gay student, and they fired the straight man.
Really?
Yes, he should not have said that to that child who was gay and who was thankful for that, finally having a straight person. You know, so that doesn't really answer your question. It kind of makes it worse, probably, but that is a true story. You know, nice guy says it's okay to be gay. I get it. Be yourself, and then he gets fired for telling somebody to be who they are.
Gosh,
the world's in a weird place.
Sobering, yeah. Wow.
So I actually got asked to leave a meeting once because, let me see if this is related. I was in a church group, and it was a group of men who met, gay men, and once a week, and it went through like 6 months of, when you introduce yourself, it'd be like, I'm gay, and I applied for a job this week, but I didn't get it because I'm gay. Or, just, you know, and then that would be the history of the discussions for months. And finally I said, the reason you get the job is because you think you're a horrible person, and you're wearing it all over you. So people pick up on that, and then they ask me not to come back to the meetings for a while. But
really?
It's true, because I would say to this guy, "You're awesome. You're like one of the smartest people. You're cute. You're like cuter than I am. You can get whatever you want. What's wrong with you? Why do you have to go to this place that makes you think you're a piece of crap because you're gay? Maybe that, so maybe I don't understand that, or maybe I do, but it really upset me that these people who I thought were so much more awesome than I was were not being out, not being themselves, or thinking they were not getting their life fully because they were gay, and that's a complicated thing. And lucky for me, I didn't go there, but they asked me not to come back. And that really made me sad because I thought I really like these people.
Wow.
Is that a sad story or what?
Well, I guess because you weren't.
I just wanted it to be better.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
So which may be going to the question that so maybe those pivotal moments where, and I guess that's another discussion. Where do you find that moment that says to you, bingo, you know what? I'm okay. I'm a gay guy that's okay, or a gay gal, or what, transsexual, whatever you are.
Mhm. Well, now we only have 3 minutes left, but in working with other people and with working with myself, because I grew up with plenty of places where I thought I wasn't okay. Well, so speaking of myself and other people, I think there does come a point where you just have to make a decision that you're going to accept yourself no matter what.
Right, and then move forward and don't look right or left, look straight ahead.
Yeah.
You're just, and it gets. Go ahead.
The thing is, it really is a decision. At least from my point of view, it was. I didn't go through what you have gone through. I wasn't bullied for being gay. Maybe other things.
But you were probably bullied for something else.
Yeah, but it wasn't. But anyway, I do remember a moment in my life where I said, you know what? Damn it all. I just made this strong decision that I was going to care about myself and love myself and accept myself regardless of what anybody said about me or thought about me or any mistakes that I had made, which were legion, of course.
Yes.
So anyway, listen, now we only have 90 seconds.
Okay, let me just say this about it. You're right. So in my head, all during those years, I was like, you're okay, regardless of what they're saying, you're okay. And if you stick with it long enough, you're going to believe it. And then you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But it's hard work.
It is hard work. It is hard work because even when you make the decision, there's a lot of pull to come out of that. And you can go back to, I'm not okay. And then just like, wait. No. I promised that I would support myself no matter what. I am okay. So that's what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And it's time. Time's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Wow. Larry, thank you so much. I think we do have to do it again.
Yeah, and I'll send
Thank
you
you.
the check for the therapy session. That would be awesome. How much are you charging an hour now? Wow.
Oh, for you?
Yeah. This was therapy.
Listen, you said you were going to be raising $1 million today, so I'll just take half. 500,000.
Okay, well that would be good. If I could raise $1 million, I will give you half.
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, I'll take it.
Well, I love you, honey.
I love you too. Give my love to Joe.
I will.
This has been great. Okay.
Indeed.
Goodbye, everybody. See you next time.